Thank you, friends.
Thank you for that wonderful grounding meditation, Wando. Um, you really went through the whole body, which is powerful. I forgot certain body parts, and so it was nice to just check in and just be grateful for all that, that these body parts do for us moment to moment. So thank you for that. Did anyone else want to express how that meditation was for them? I know sometimes we share it afterwards, but since we're in the moment, was there anything? It was very relaxing too.
Hey, Bob. James, rather. I'm sorry. I just want to say that I really needed that. Thank you so very much. Um, Very nice. And I feel much more centered than when I signed in. Thank you.
Thank Great. Thank you for that. So today oh yes, Jay.
It was a slightly different experience. Generally, when we do progressive relaxation from head to toe,
Mm-hmm.
this time, toe to head, and then coming back to dungeon area.
Mm.
For me, it was a slightly different experience, and I enjoyed it. I felt kind of an energy coming up slowly. So thank you for me to experience different types of going through my body. Thank you.
Thank you for that sharing. So today we are touching on the sixth item of mindfulness in daily training. And today we have Christine who will present for us.
So good evening, and I thought I'd wait till I got to talk to say something about Wando's meditation. I loved it. I especially loved feeling my face melt. And you used a great quote too. I have to look that quote up. So that was a great way to start. And having an intention set in the beginning and then remembering it at the end, I thought was really beautiful too. So thank you very much, Wando. That was great. So tonight we're going to talk about the sixth item of heedfulness. After completing any task, think about how you handled it. Be mindful to assess whether you have carried out the task that you resolved both to do or not to do. So as human beings, we try to be mindful. We try to reflect on things. Heedful means to be attentive, to be mindful, to be thoughtful, to be careful. So I want to start with a story because I think that when we see heedful as being judgmental, we have a tendency to not do it. But when we see heedful as the use of our inner wisdom, we have much more of the ability to use it to learn and to change and to grow. So I went to graduate school and studied literacy and taught reading and literacy skills to children from age pre-K all the way up to junior college my whole life. Loved my job, was pretty much given free rein because I did it really well. I worked very hard. And most times, if people had struggled with any sort of issues with reading, I was able to figure out why, how, what to do. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, working with study groups, and my job was great. And then when I was probably in my 50s, I had been teaching for over 30 years, the state came in and said, okay, we have to change the way everybody's teaching. We need to do a lot of evaluation. So we have scripts for you. So this is the way you're going to do things. And kids were taught to work for a test. They weren't taught to love learning for itself. They were taught to learn to take a test. So, you know, you'd see kids in first and second grade with these bubble sheets in front of them. They were crying. They didn't want to do this. You know, it was really difficult. Teachers really struggled. And I really struggled with my job because I was not going to follow a script. I knew how to teach. I knew how to get kids to learn, to grow, to reflect on what they were doing, to understand how they learned so that they could really grow and read and love reading and just be a literate person. So I left, but I didn't want to leave teaching. So I started to work. I got a job at a charter school. And the whole focus of the charter school was very, very different than working in public schools. It was in an inner city, so 95% of the kids came from homes in poverty. They were not easy kids. They were tough kids. Most of them were thrown out of other schools. It was a small school though, and we implemented a program called the Responsive Classroom for the first 6 weeks of school. And we started every day by sitting in circles, small groups on the floor, and we started with meditation. So it would only be, you know, 2 to 5 minutes of meditation. We started slow and added more and more. And, you know, kids were asked, how is your day going? What happened? You know, what's going on with you? And then the first 6 weeks were spent figuring out what the rules were going to be for their classroom. And the whole idea behind this was to get kids invested in their education, get kids invested in their learning. We all knew that there were going to be times when things didn't work out. So in every room, there was a thinking space. And sometimes it was a tent, sometimes it was a desk, sometimes the kids decided what it was going to be. It was decorated. And it was a place you could go if you were struggling and you needed time to think. So, and kids did that. They would, sometimes the teacher had to say, it's time for you to go sit in the thinking space. Sometimes they couldn't sit in that thinking space in their own classrooms. They had to go to another room because they struggled with other kids in that room. And then sometimes they put themselves there. They just knew that they needed that time to reflect on what had happened, and they did it. So the school was small, less than 100 kids. We had 2 full-time social workers, and whenever there was an issue or a problem, the social worker would take the student out of the room to meet with maybe the other student or whatever, so that they could discuss what happened, figure it out, really think about it, decide maybe I did something that wasn't in the best interests of myself or you, or maybe I stole your pencil. And they had to apologize, and they had to say what they did, and then they had to say that they were not going to do this again. So it was a very reflective time for kids. It took a while to get this going, but kids learned how to do it, and it pretty much worked really, really well. Kids were listened to, kids were heard, and they learned because they were able to, because they felt like they made up the rules in their own classrooms. They were not being judged or evaluated. they were asked to really dive into their own inner selves and figure out how to do things. So to me, when we have to reflect on ourselves every day, I went back to the part in the Path of Humanity where Master Soto-san gives parents some ideas about ways to be with children. And so he said, you need to be an example of respect. You need to behave with reverence. You need to be affectionate, trustworthy. You need to use proper praise, inspire right faith, have public spirit, don't slander people, and don't take anything or receive anything unjustly. And to me, those are the things that we need to ask ourselves all the time. Am I being an example? Am I behaving with reverence? Am I inspiring right faith? Do I have public spirit? Did I take anything unjustly? And I think that that's one of the best ways that we can reflect at any time during the day. And I don't think it has to be in the evening necessarily. Maybe that's the best time because you've had a full day in front of you. But I think we can always take mini breaks during the day to reflect on, what am I doing? Take that breath that James told us to take, and say, am I serving other people's best interests? Am I really helping here? Am I being my best self? And if you're not, put yourself in timeout, put yourself into that thinking chair, put yourself into meditation. That to me is kind of one of the best things that you can do. The school that, the charter school that I worked in did really well. Kids thrived, kids made great gains. And then 3 or 4 years down the road, the state said, okay, charter schools, you have to do the exact same thing. We're handing you scripts. We're handing you, this is exactly what you need to say so that everybody can be on the same page and doing well. And I decided it was time for me to leave that situation because I knew what worked. Many of the teachers left the school. It was almost 50% of the teachers left the school because they felt like they were not given free rein to do what they needed to do to really make this world a better place with kids who struggled. And many of these children struggled. So I went back also to Master Sotozan's words on moral practice, number 43, where he said, if you have a great wish, it produces great faith. If you have great faith, it produces great courage. If you have great courage, it produces great doubt. But then great doubt produces great sincerity. And through that, great enlightenment. And it doesn't happen at once, but there will be thousands of moments of enlightenment because we're human and we don't attain that final enlightenment at once. And so it's by those little tidbits that we move along. So those are my thoughts about the 6th item of heedfulness and reflection, because I really feel that that lesson that I learned from learning how to be in this responsive classroom model was really a model for life. And I hope some of the story has helped you. So thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Christine. To hear your story is wonderful. And you touched on some great points about the 6th item. So the importance of reflection, but reflection not needing to be certainly just not just in the evening. It can be throughout the day. In fact, there are certain people that kind of split their day into parts and they'll do reflections, because sometimes you forget, things that you did early in the morning, you forget in the evening. So checking in is a great practice. But let's open it up to our virtual family here. So for any of you who, after hearing Christine's presentation, have some reflections yourself about the sixth item of heedfulness. Mhm. Yes, Kathy.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, James, too. It's beautiful. I wanted to say that I really love that, because I know you, and there's such genuineness in your, there's thoughtfulness and genuineness in everything that you do. You always have that it's really a model. And it reminded me that it's so lovely to see that reflection that you had from the kids and created for the kids, and how that's who you are and that's what you do in your daily life. And I can see how you do that assessment probably many times a day. You're always the first person to ask, can I get someone's address? Or you send me cards. You're just so incredibly thoughtful. And what I want to say is that it's really lovely to see everyday life example of that. And then how you linked it to the scripture, and then how you linked it to what Master Soda-san said about, one step at a time, one moment of enlightenment at a time. And it's just really lovely. And I wanted to just thank you. And thank you for letting me witness like a part of you that I didn't know. It was really, really nice to see. So I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I feel like the first time I walked into One Dharma, Claverack, I felt the same warmth I felt when I started working at the charter school. People were kind, they were humble, everyone bowed. People wanted to know if I needed help. It was just a warm, embracing feeling. And so that's why I never left. So thank you for those words. But I feel like One Dharma has the same type of environment.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Thank you, Christine. As always, it's great to listen to your words of wisdom, and thank you for sharing your story. As an educator, I was wondering, because you went over the list of the different ways of how we can be heedful, how did the term of reverence, what did that look like? And how did you apply that in everyday situations?
Do you mean when I was teaching or?
Sure, or if you have another example.
Well, in the school I worked in, people were, as soon as you walked into the front office, you were always greeted. People's heads were never down. People said hello, they said your name. And you were listened to. So I think part of reverence is being listened to. As my husband are now into our 11th month of COVID, we're very different people. We've had to learn how to really listen to each other a lot more and take some deep breaths and maybe rephrase and reframe what we said so that the other person understands what's going on. And I think that's a way of being reverent, to to breathe into who someone else is and what they're feeling. And if you really listen to what they're saying, then that to me is like deep, deep reverence.
Great. Thank you very much.
Not easy, but.
Go ahead, Wando. Oh, microphone, Wando, your microphone.
Oh, thank you, Christine. I was trying to formulate my thoughts because obviously I could relate to everything you said. I think we work in parallel lives, and we're probably definitely spirit connected spiritually in so many ways. I, like you, share the same experience. I think of seeing young people who are struggling academically, emotionally, psychologically, be successful in school, and oftentimes seeing how adults don't make the time or the room to truly listen to what they think or feel. And so I think your story really resonated with me in the deep level of compassion that you demonstrate to the students you work with, and being mindful about what they need in terms of teaching them reading and responding to their needs, and really being flexible to finding the ways that young people learn best instead of following the scripted curriculum, which I share that pain every day, and I see that not work at all, and we still do it knowing it doesn't work. But the bravery and the courage that you took to say, no, that's not how I choose to be mindful in the gift that and the talent that I have to give to young people. And so when I think of that sixth item of heedfulness, it says, after finishing any task, which, thinking about the task of reading, teaching reading, think about how you handled it. And you demonstrated in your story how you handled teaching young people, both the difficulties and the beauty of it. And then it says, being mindful to assess, right? To assess whether or not you've carried out the task you resolved to do and not to do. And so your story was beautiful in the sense that it gave us a lens of how you assess that process for yourself. And you chose to make that assessment to say, well, that's not necessarily what I chose to do. So you made the decision to go to the charter school and then do the teaching that you wanted to do, and then work on with the rest of the staff, creating the thinking spaces to empower young people to self-assess themselves and breathe and reflect and really be in touch with their own selves. So I just thought overall it was very beautiful, and it connected very clearly to the sixth item of heedfulness. And I just again want to thank you for your compassion and your courage, and for your sincerity and vulnerability in sharing that with us. So
No,
thank you
thank you,
so much.
James.
Yeah.
Yes, Kathy.
I'm sorry. There's just one little thing I wanted to say to you, Christine, and I think you really you reminded me of this, and it's something I have on my refrigerator actually. When I did my teacher training, my Waldorf teacher training, there was one quote about the kids that made the biggest impression on me of all the training, and that was, children learn by imitation. Are you worthy of being imitated? And that you kind of said that, but that quote always I think of it now and then, which you just brought it up for me again. So thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, Master Soto-san really said we need to be models. We need to be examples for our children, but we need to be examples for ourselves and for all of our friends too. So that's why I like that whole passage about parents and their children from number 46 in the Path of Humanity. Yep, made sense to me. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. And I think, Christy, if you could at some point put that in the chat box, that the number quote, I think some people may want to look that up
Okay.
later, if you can.
Sure.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so now we will hand it over to Reverend Yu.
Okay, thank you so much, James. You're leading the meditation, really. We're very, very wonderful. And our previous head Dharma master said, one teacher is identical with one Buddhist temple. The teacher's influence is very important, very influential. So I think you're creating a lot of blessings. Today we are studying together the last item of mindfulness in our daily practice, in our daily life, the sixth. If it is 60, it is hard to remember and put that into action, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's possible. Sometimes when your friend give you some gift, whatever they are, actually, it's not something you don't need. You will have no chance to use that. That's why these days a gift card is very popular, or just to give the money. Because with a gift card or money, you can purchase whatever things you want. Likewise, if you put into action these 6 items of mindfulness, everything will follow. Whether it's your career, your practice, your health, human relationship, whatever thing. If you actualize these 6 items of mindfulness, then your life, our destiny, will be changed for the better. This is the last item. Several years ago, one of the ministers who worked here, Reverend Joe, joined some retirement ceremony for the one Buddhist minister from the age of 68. These days it changed to 71. We are supposed to retire. It's a big ceremony. And his teacher was retiring in that year. When the ceremony started, one minister was a little late. They needed some rehearsal period. But his classmate, the other fellow minister, said, pretty in a joking way, in a not serious manner, even when you are prime minister, you are pretty late to the class, but at this retirement ceremony, you're late again. Think about that. Ministers are the ones who devote their time and energy to train their mind. That's their occupation. Do you know so many ministers who retired, their lifestyle is very similar to the lifestyle that they had when they were prime minister. In other words, our lifestyle, our habit, whatever things, it's hard to be changed. Some of the habits, you may think it's a minor. Well, for example, being lazy. What's about the big deal? Or the habit to postpone things constantly. It may not be that serious. But what is a habit? It is something that we repeatedly do. So even though it is a minor thing, if to a certain way of speaking, mindset, action, we become habituated to a certain type of mindset or actions. It's serious. Statistics says 70% of our actions are done habits. So it's a mechanically, consciously or unconsciously repeated. Think about the trickling water. It drops on the same spot. It eventually makes a hole, a big depression in the rock. Without reflection, without your firm resolution, how can it be changed? If it is not changed, your level of practice, your level of life in whatever area will always remain the same. Just like many Buddhist ministers' lifestyle. In order to change it, reflection comes first. That's why be mindful to reflect and assess whether or not you have carried out the task you resolved both to do or not to do. So Socrates said, an examined life is not worth living. Our One Dharma Center members know the last Sunday in December, we always have a year-end reflection ceremony. At first, we prostrated 108 times, but many people dislike that. So, but that's changeable depending on the year. But one thing remained the same, one program. They were asked to think about, to look back that past year, 1 year, and they are asked many times to write what they are sorry and what they are very happy or contented. Many people write, for example, I'm sorry that I did not kept my New Year resolution, something they resolved. I promised myself to read the scripture on a regular basis, saying more kind words to my spouse, be more compassionate, understanding to my children, etc. In the practice area as well as in our regular life, they should not be separate. So most of the people write more items that they feel sorry for that year. Understandable, natural, yeah, considering our human nature. But it's a year-end reflection ceremony. From one perspective, to a certain degree, they wasted one whole year in several particular areas. That's why our founding master said, instead of reflecting and looking back at the end of the year, at the end of the month, why don't we do that on a daily basis to change ourselves? It's items of mindfulness in daily practice, daily, not monthly or yearly. If the time is very free, up to you. I don't do that before retiring to bed. In my case, after morning prayer and meditation, we have a cleaning session like 20 minutes, And I go back to my room, or I sit on the couch on the common area and have a cup of tea. I have like usually 30 minutes, 20 minute quiet time. At the time, I look back my day, or sometimes I think about what I'm supposed to do. We need some quiet time, look back ourselves. As I said, otherwise, we constantly do the same thing again and again. We cannot progress. We can progress, of course, but if we really progress very speedily, not deviating from the proper path, just like when we go to the wrong direction, the navigator tells the constantly reset our destination orientation. We need to do that to ourselves on a daily basis. Or if it is too much, you can do that several times in a week. If you, whether it's in the morning or before retiring to bed, it's up to you. After supper, when you walk outside, if you reflect each and every activity that happened on that day, actually it's very tiring to think about and reflect. I don't like that. That's why our founding master says, let me share the screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. After finishing any work, think about how you handled the be minded to whether or not carried out. Just the task, not all the daily activity. Just the task. It can be 1, 2, 3. The task that you resolved both to do or sometimes not to do. It can be quit smoking, quit drinking. It can be not skipping Sunday service, whatever things. It's up to you. So based on just the several items, you need to look back whether or not you have carried out. Reflect. In my case, sometimes I look back and one Buddhists are supposed to check the minor journal, especially the one important part is the precepts part. So these are the things I usually look back when I have a cup of time after cleaning time. Do not fight without due cause. Do not speak about the faults of others. Do not speak flowery and ingratiating word. Do not conceited. Do not make improper. We are not supposed to look back too many things. It's not workable. It's exhausting. Okay. Okay, what happened? Especially, the focus is when we reflect, assess, what's the focus? The focus is this one. Whether or not we have carried out the task or not. Carried out. 실행, this Korean word, another translation goes, whether we put that into action or not. Whether we actualized that or not. Excellent people is different not in their thoughts or planning, but in their action. One day, I heard one public speech delivered by Steve Jobs. He said, he does not make long-term plan. He never did, because the world is changing so fast. Making long-term plan is not working, particularly in his area. What he is focused, what he is concentrating on is to actualize what he's supposed to do. So on that action, he focused his mind. So all Americans know the Jack Ma, the chairman, the founder of Alibaba. Are you familiar with that Chinese guy? Jack Ma. One day, Jack Ma met, okay, let's stop sharing. One day, Jack Ma met Sun Zhenghee. Jack Ma is one of the richest person, excellent businessman in China. Sun Zhenghee is the founder of the SoftBank, the president of the SoftBank. Is one of the top 5 richest person in Japan. Both are excellent businessmen. When they come together, they happen to be involved in some conversation. Jack Ma asked to Mr. Sun, President Sun, if there are 2 projects, one is the planning is first class, but the execution is the 3rd class. There is another project. It's planned a little poorly, not that great, but the execution turned out very great. People really carried out that project in the excellent manner. Among 2 projects, which has a higher possibility to succeed. Both of them agreed. Even though it is a 3rd class planning, if the execution is a 1st class, it has a higher chance for it to become successful. Think about your practice. Think about your life. Some people plan very well. So as this item says, our founding master said, reflect and assess whether or not you have carried out, whether you actualize the task you resolved both to do or not to do. But why it is one of the items in our daily life? Just like the word of Jesus, your mind is willing, but your body is weak. It's not easy to actually carry out what we promised to ourselves. That's why we need to do that again and again. I think I told what I heard from my teacher. There is a Korean saying, New Year resolution lasts for 3 days. Statistics in Korea says actually it lasts not 3 days, 3.5 days. But my teacher said, if we renew our resolution every 3 days. We can carry out what we promised. Whether it's a New Year resolution or whatever area that you would like to accomplish. So, Grace, do you know 김경일 교무님 수사님? The president of when he was a prime minister, he was not happy with the minister's life. He was not comfortable in the dormitory schedule. He's not interested in morning meditation. Reading Buddhist scripture is not appealing, but he just thought for a long time he was not cut for ministry. He had a very serious inner conflict period for 1 or 2 years. One day, he met our third head Dharma master, Venerable Desa. He very candidly said what he felt. So he's considering leaving the priesthood. But Venerable Desa said, if a person falls down 100 times, but he gets up 101 time, that person will make it. If a person falls down just once, but if he cannot get up once, he will become a loser. That's a pretty encouraging word for him. So he repeatedly changed himself. It took time and effort. He's one of the most respected minister in Won Buddhist community. He's the president of the graduate school of Won Buddhism. So repetition. So we do not have to be discouraged. Something does not be accomplished soon. So repetition is the point. So at the last, let me show you one thing. Can you see this photo?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know what this is about? How to grow bean sprout. Bean sprout is a Korean's favorite vegetable. On the bowl, you put lots of beans and you pour water. Then the water just drained out. But you need to pour the water a couple of times in a day. They will eventually grow. Okay. My mother we discovered my mother had a terminal stage colon cancer at the age of 57. The doctor told me that she cannot, the operation is not necessary, it's useless, and she cannot live more than 6 months. It's very shocking to us. She was just 57. But she did not regularly meditate or read the scripture. Yeah, a couple of hours she studied one Buddhist scripture, but I was not very happy about that. She's supposed to be more mature practitioner. But do you know one thing she did very well? Do you know what it is? She never missed a Sunday service. It seems very minor. She's not great meditator. She didn't have much knowledge in Buddhist scripture, But in this one area, she repeated it to that. I thought it's a very, very minor thing, but she repeated it to that. Then her mind became very strengthened and empowered. The proof was she refused to have any kind of chemotherapy. Everybody if they discovered to have a cancer, have some kind of a therapy. But she said, well, after that treatment, I may lose my hair. I become very weakened. I can live just as it is, and I will live and die very happily. At first, we thought she's just saying it to comfort me and our father. But the truth is, she was not actually that much anxious and worried. I'm not sure it's because of the cheerful mood of her spirit. She lived without any pain more than 6 years. So whether it's not skipping Sunday service or meditation, Dharma study, whatever area, if we repeatedly to that, then you will have the power. You will eventually make it. Okay, and last, you see this Chinese character? Can you see this one?
Oh no, you have to share your screen, Reverend Yu.
Oh, share the screen. Okay. Yeah, my last word. Can you see this one?
Yes.
Yeah. 연습, which means a practice train, composed of two Chinese characters. 연 means a repeat, train, discipline. 섭. 섭 means also practice, repeat, etc. 연습, spiritual practice training. It's very interesting. Sub is composed of the two parts. This is sub, practice and repeat. This part, it looks like a bird's feather. Feather plus white. White feather means the bird is very young. Exercise practice, some means a young bird flip their wings repeatedly. That's what practice means. So there is no special skill or secret. You stick to these 6 items of mindfulness, repeatedly do that. If daily reflection is too hard, you can reflect just once or twice in a week. Then our life, the practice go to another level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Yu.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in your small group discussion, there's several things you can discuss. And one of them is, what are your items of mindfulness? Like, what are your items that you resolve to do and not to do? If you have any that you can share with the group. And what's your practice of reflection right now? What does that look like? And also identifying habits. What habits would you like to change, or which habits have helped you? Which habits do you see are hindering you in your practice? Okay, so I will open up the rooms. And then you welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. So I feel that you probably had some very fruitful conversations about item number 6, about reflection. Reverend, you touched upon many important things, such as preparation and then the importance of reflecting on that, what we resolve to do or not to do. So, in your conversations, if you could share with us, what were your reflections about number 6? Were there any habits that you mentioned that perhaps you want to work on, or maybe some items of mindfulness that you have set for yourself, or what your reflection practice looks like, or anything else that came up for your group that you feel will support the others in their practice? So I invite, so Kathy's group, Wendo, Kathy, Allison, was there anything you'd like to share about item number 6?
You want to start, Kathy, and I'll jump in, or? Okay, we spent the time sharing our experiences with areas of our lives where we're mindful and conscious of what we're doing, and how that has impacted our overall sense of being and our overall sense of progress. I think Allison gave a really wonderful story of her. If I may share, Allison, is that okay? Your story you share? Great story of how her stove, she just purchased her stove 3 years ago, and recently last week it blew up, and the stove obviously is not functioning and not able to be used, and how upset that was for her, because she loves cooking in the stove, and all of a sudden now she has to shift and think about, well, how do I cook? How do I able to make this work? And so that experience she was sharing is actually helped her think about pre-planning what she has to cook, and now used alternative ways to cook, and be mindful in that way. And I thought that was a really great example of how sometimes life throws us these curveballs and lemons and struggles, and when we least expect it, it ends up becoming a blessing from the universe for us to be aware of something more powerful in the lesson. So that was awesome to share. And Kathy spoke really great about how prayer is a habit and a form of mindfulness that she engages in every day and throughout the day. And I thought that was a beautiful way to talk through that. And I was sharing with the group that when we first started Canon 1, I remember one of the first class I believe that we attended, or one of the first classes in Canon 1, was I think Kathy spoke about the journaling practice, and she then invited me early on to be part of the Mind Journal class with Reverend Park at the Dharma Center. And so it's 3 hours ahead of me. So they meet every Saturday. And I said, okay, I'm going to try. It's 6 a.m. here, but I'm going to try to do this. And so I went a couple times, and it was definitely hard to get up at 6 a.m. on Saturday after a work day. But it was so empowering to see how a community got together to share the journals and share their reactions and gave each other feedback, which I was blown away by that practice. And I tried to pick that up on myself, and it was just very difficult, not to have a support group. So in talking with Reverend Dogan here in LA, our head English minister, we started to really brainstorm in this time, and I shared with him that I really want to start a Mind Journal like group, and so we did it. I proposed it to the other group of 4 that meet with us on Sunday service, and we pitched the idea, and now we started. So I was inspired by the group. So we actually have a meeting tomorrow, Friday evening, and to share our journal and check in on our Dharma record and mindfulness. And so it's been really great to kind of reflect on that evolution, and to know that who would have thought that we were starting a mind journaling class in LA, all because of the modeling of the center there, that Reverend Park and Kathy are part of. So I just so I just wanted to say thank you for that. But that's some of the highlights that we spoke about, and repeatedly practicing the little things, in our life, like brushing our teeth and washing the dishes or taking the lint out of the dryer. Like the more mindful we can be of the small things, then hopefully we can have, be more mindful of the bigger things in our life, pay more attention to the small things. Even how we tie our shoes could be a more mindful thing, right? So thank you for listening.
Wow, that's wonderful. You covered everything. I feel like you covered everything. And when you shared the story from Allison, I mean, the words that came to mind was out of harm can be grace. Like you really took that opportunity as an opportunity for practice. And I love, through prayer, Kathy, definitely the reflection, the power of that, getting the help of other power, and journaling. I love how, Wando, that you took that idea and you took the initiative. You said, let's create a community here in LA. So I think that's wonderful, and you're enhancing the power of community. So that's going to be great for the members over there. I think that's wonderful. And I saw like people like clapping their hands. They're like silent joy. They're like, so you got some cheerleaders over here. Great. Thank you for that. Hearts to everybody. Hearts to everybody. So Brenda, Diane, Jay, Tiffany, please do share with us.
Okay, I will start, and please add in. We talked about some of the ideas were to use the 9 dharmas of daily practice as to what you're evaluating your activity with. And then we had a nice conversation about, well, we also agreed journaling and talked about that same exact class that's occurring. And more specifically about, what is the practice, are we and this was a lot of my question, but, understanding that this is a temporary condition, and something that Diane mentioned that I know at least a couple of us really liked the imagery of, is that understanding that our original nature is the sky, and that the emotions and the conditions, whether they're positive or negative, are the clouds or the weather. And so just understanding that the sky is really what we are all part of the sky, and that is something powerful. So I don't know.
Tiffany, did you want to add something?
Oh, I just liked what Brenda said, and also just to add to her list, we realize that we're all very mindful throughout the day. So it's not just concentrated at one point. It starts from, the beginning to end, and we encouraged each other to not overthink, but rather just kind of take a step back, just acknowledge a situation, good or bad. It doesn't have to be negative. It could be positive too. And, use that in the practice as a way of reflecting on, this is coming from the past. So how can I make this better, not just for myself, but also for others that I interact with? So the item of mutual benefit seemed to be something that we all do consciously and subconsciously.
All right. So, wow, your group also had a very fruitful discussion. Thank you for sharing, Brenda and Tiffany. I love how you brought up the essential dharmas of daily practice, like connecting it right with, that's also this year's New Year's message from our head Dharma master. He talks about the importance of essential dharmas of daily practice. So I love that you all brought that up. And Diane's, her point, I like that because you're bringing it back to the truth of each one, like making that connection back to our truth, which I think is very fundamental, is very important, because then it doesn't just become a technique. Yeah, you have that foundation on our powerful principle. And I love that you all are mindful during the day. Okay, you're very mindful during the day. That's very good. And I like that you're not overthinking. Reverend Yu was talking about that, right? That's overthinking, over-attachment. So they use that example in our teachings of like the babysitter. You know, if you're looking after your baby, you're not going to just hold the baby the whole time. The baby is going to cry and struggles. You let the baby roam a bit, and if it goes somewhere dangerous, that's when you kind of guide it back, right? Guide it back. So the same with our practice. If you get too intense and too, then that will can drive you. They'll go. So just being aware of that. And it seemed like your group was doing also a great job of setting an intention, like doing the reflection and then setting an intention, right? And I would add, if you could even just do the practice of letting go as well, like saying, okay, for example, if I made I made a mistake today, or did something that caused harm, to reflect on that. If it requires repentance, then there's a practice of repentance, but setting an intention and then letting go and saying, you know what, tomorrow's a new day. I'm going to do better. I'm going to do my best. And then you also talked about, you brought in the grace of fellow beings, like benefiting myself, benefiting my others. So you touched on a whole bunch of wonderful things in that discussion. Thank you. And finally, last but not least, Christine, Ida, Isabel, Patty.
Hello? I thought somebody else would talk. I hate talking. um, I guess a lot of what we talked about was the being alone during COVID and what to do with that free time. Um, um, and I'm not good with names, so oh crap, please, somebody else talk. So somebody mentioned about taking time to learn how to quiet the mind in activity. You know, like they talk about the calm under the ocean waves, you know, to not always have the mind running at full speed. Being aware of that and um, being mindful to stop and take a break. Um, I don't remember how the conversation came up, but I'm trying to quit smoking. So I've been smoking for 50 years. So it's a really hard habit. And that was also in one of our readings over this last thing, how habits become ingrained. And it's not even anything we give thought to, right? So when I get in the car, I automatically want to light up a cigarette. And so I have to be aware that well, maybe that's not what I want to do. You know, so I have nicotine gum. I can pop that in my mouth. But it also being alone, you know, I live alone, and one of our other ladies lives alone, and so what do we do with that dead time? You know, so for me, it's to smoke, um, and I have to change those habits, which takes being mindful in that moment. Is that what I really want to do? Um, So we talked about the powerlessness over coronavirus, and I really don't know if someone else could please jump in and finish talking. That would be really great. Thank you.
Well, I just at the end of our conversation, after kind of doing a little bit of whining about this and that, I think we all said we need to revel in reflection because we've got the time right now to reflect. So seize the day, you know, carpe diem. It's, you know, if we have extra time, like spend it doing some reflection, doing more meditation. And we all agreed it's much easier when you have a group, and we really look forward to this class, to the small group time, to the talks, to the big group time, to the meditation. That's been really helpful. And our own services at our temples where where we go on Sundays has been really helpful, and maybe friends that we meet with because we need connection. But we do have that time. So it, yeah, use it. Do it.
That's a great advice, Christine. Just do it. Let's just do it. So in the chat box for item number 6, let's set an intention for this week. For item number 6, how do I how would I like to put this into practice? Like Reverend was saying, it's, not just planning, but let's do our best to put into action. So just take a moment and in our chat box, just jot down how you would like to practice item number 6. Great. Wonderful. And Reverend, would you like to just end for us? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for your wonderful sharing. You can tell who said this. Some great person. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, but a habit. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, but a habit. Who said that?
Is it Aristotle?
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, how could you? Yeah.
Reverend, is there a prize? Is
No.
there? Sorry.
The prize is that you will have a better habit. So Aristotle, philosopher, said that, which means in whatever area, whether you're a scholar, artist, if you have a very good habit, you will accomplish what you want. Our previous head Dharma master, Venerable Gyeongsan, said to our ministers, if you would like to know whether you will become a Buddha or not, when you will attain Buddhahood, just see your habit, then you can tell. One nurse in Australia working in some hospice, she conducted a survey for the patients, 1,000 patients on deathbed. what you regret. Let me read top 5. I just worked. I led the life of what others wanted, not what I want. I did not express my feelings honestly. To achieve my goal, I did not do my best. When one Japanese nurse conducted the survey, you know what? It's almost the same. On another thing, I did not enjoy my hobbies. I did not lead a life of a love which can be memorable. Whether it's in the East or in the West, what they regret might be very similar. What I would like to say tonight is it's what they regret on deathbed. It's too late. But you have a lot of time, and there is no life and death. There are countless lives are unfolding us. If you consolidate, you plant a seed of a great aspiration and consolidate the vow, it directly linked to your next life. So just like these items of they regret on deathbed, to think we need to think about what I'm trying to do, what I pour a lot of time and energy to accomplish it. Is it really, really worthwhile to do that? Not any one person regret on the deathbed, they did not make enough money. Nobody regret that kind of thing. Is it really worthwhile that I pour all my time and energy to accomplish something? I don't know what you try to fulfill. It is really worthwhile. Life orientation. The second thing, do I really do my best to achieve it? Just the 2 things. So let's reflect on these 2 things. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Yu. And before we close, it's always the fun time of next week. We are going to be now starting the items of heedfulness in temple visits. So 1, 2, and 3. And I would ask if there's a presenter for that, and also someone who can guide the meditation, if I can get some volunteers for that. So someone who can guide meditation for next week. Okay, great, Allison. Thank you. And presentation, is there anyone who would like to take a stab at that? Oh, okay. I'm just looking at the order. Is anyone, whoever hasn't presented, everyone will have a turn to present. So I encourage. Okay, then I will send out emails. I'll go down the roster. Okay. All right. So everyone have a, oh, yes.
I'll do it.
Okay, James, thank you.
Hi.
James is like, let's get this over with. Okay, no, that's great. Wonderful. So it's 1, 2, 3, Wando. It's going to be 1, 2, 3 items, 1, 2, 3. So wonderful. Thank you so much. I always look forward to this class as well. Everyone have a very good night, and we'll see you again next week. Bye. See you.